Have you ever seen a game and instantly felt like it was something for you? Like, everything from its visuals to its gameplay just screams something that you think you'd love? Well, that's exactly how I felt the first time I saw APE OUT many years ago. And when the game finally came out, I failed at finding time to play it even though I knew it was calling for me. I love these kinds of top-down, trial-and-error style indie games, so I figured I had to stop putting it off and play this game. So what's up everyone, my name is Sebastian, and today I wanted to share my thoughts on APE OUT. In APE OUT, you play as an ape, and you break out. And I'd say that pretty much sums it up, so I'll talk to you all next time. No, but seriously, this is a very gameplay and visually focused game. It's not that long, but it's the kind of game where people who it clicks with will replay it over and over again. You'll make your way through randomly generated maze-like levels, you'll encounter plenty of different enemy types and chapter-specific level mechanics in highly stylized environments. There isn't really much that you can do or interact with in this game. Aside from giant metal doors that you tear down and can use as a shield or as a throwable object, there isn't really much else you can interact with in the environment. No real weapons you can use, but what you can do is grab enemies. Once you grab an enemy, they can act like a human shield. You can also throw them at other enemies, or you can point them in other enemies' directions and have them shoot their own team. So in a way, there are weapons you can use to shoot at people, but my problem with using enemies as weapons is that you can't make them fire whenever you want. You'll grab them and then they'll fire within a few seconds of grabbing them, which I felt both didn't give me enough time to aim where I wanted, and also they wouldn't shoot fast enough, and by the time they'd actually fire their gun, I'd already be killed. There's a pretty good amount of enemy types in the game that you can grab and use as a weapon, guys with shotguns, assault rifles, or flamethrowers, but I never felt like they really did enough to change up the gameplay. The main thing you'll be doing is throwing or pushing them around, which will cause them to explode into a bloody mess once they hit a wall or another enemy. This is pretty fun and visually looks really cool and stylized. But again, with nothing to really interact with and level environments always looking the same, the game feels more repetitive than it should. And in this regard, the game being kinda short is pretty beneficial for it, since had it been any longer, it might have overstayed its welcome. Chapter-specific level mechanics include things like lights going out, bombs falling, snipers, and fire. These are the things that most change up the gameplay and help each chapter feel unique. Each chapter has its own visual style, and the mechanic tied to the chapter fits the style perfectly. And although I would have liked more variation in gameplay, these managed to change things up enough to keep me playing. Especially considering the length of the game, I again feel like less is probably more, where having added more mechanics to the levels might have made them feel less focused with their visual style. Speaking of visuals, I've been bringing them up quite a bit, and that's because the game looks super cool. Everything is solid colors and makes everything pop out really well. You've been looking at footage from this game this whole video, and I feel like you can immediately see how interesting it looks. Coating the solid color of the floor with blood and glass is something I found really satisfying. I also love how each chapter has its own color palette, and moments in the game where something would happen to make that color palette change. This game has so much style, even dying is stylish, as you can see the trail you walk throughout your run. Text is another huge part of the game's visual design. I swear if you're really into typography, you're gonna love this game. I love how the names of levels pop up at the start of each level, and I love how each one has their own different animations. Everything in this game that needs to be visually portrayed to the player is perfectly colored in a way that text, enemies, objects, and hazards are always clear. It's perfect visual language for a game like this that lets it quickly give the player necessary information. Another really cool thing about the presentation is this game's music. See, there's a lot of moments in this game where you have to sort of improvise. Levels and enemy layouts are random. You never know what you're gonna get into, so you just kinda have to think on the fly in certain situations. The music perfectly mimics this, as the soundtrack is these really catchy jazz drum beats. Being able to blend the music and the gameplay is really cool, and what adds to the blend of the audio and visual is that all of your actions make sounds that sort of add to the music, perfectly adding to the improvisational nature of both jazz music and the gameplay. The game has a couple other modes that I personally didn't feel added too much more to it. Once completing a chapter, you can now replay it in either arcade mode or harder mode. The arcade mode makes it so that you rack up a score. I really like the way they display the points, as they're written out in blood as people explode. I do feel like the addition of the score is something that could have been added to the normal mode of the game, and it being its own mode just kinda feels like an excuse to make it seem like there's more content than there actually is. Aside from the score, the only other difference in arcade mode is that you're playing until you die, kind of seeing how far you can get. The harder mode is exactly what it sounds like, although for the little I played of the harder mode, I didn't really feel like it felt much harder. After beating the game, you also unlock a bonus level called Break-In. In this level, you break into a facility, and then, once you got what you went in for, you have to escape it. It's a pretty cool idea since you have to play through the level forward and backwards, but overall, I don't feel like these extra modes add too much more value to the game. There were moments in this game that frustrated me quite a bit. Now this game is meant to be hard by design, and I'm normally really into that, but sometimes I just felt defenseless, having no options to avoid dying. Like, it'll spawn a bunch of insta-kill enemies all around you, slightly out of reach for you to do anything, and the lack of things to interact with made it feel even more frustrating that I didn't know how I could have done anything different. Another gripe I had early on was the fact that levels are randomly generated. In these types of games you die pretty fast, and the point is quickly retrying and learning from past mistakes, and taking this newly learned information into the new run. The levels being randomly generated made me feel like I couldn't really learn from past mistakes. This frustrated me a lot, and I found it to be a weird design choice for this kind of game. At its best, the game can be pretty fun, granted a little repetitive. It's also really fun to look at, and in fact, its art style is what initially sold me on it in the first place. I went into this game fully expecting to love it, but honestly ended up getting pretty pissed at it. I can't say I fully recommend this game, but if it looks like something you'd like given some of the context I've given here, then who am I to say don't play it? It's not bad, just a little light on content and maybe not for everyone. So, those were my thoughts on Ape Out, but now I want to know what you have to say about it down in the comments. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd appreciate giving it a like, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing if you aren't already. Feel free to also leave me a comment letting me know what you think I can improve in future videos, or recommending me a game that you want to see me talk about. Follow me on all the stuff that's on the screen if you want to keep up with whatever random shit I say on social media. I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night depending on when you watch this video. And with all that said, that's it for me for now, and I'll talk to you all next time.